Genesis 39, beginning with verse 19, the word of the Lord is as follows, reading from the New Living Translation. It reads, now the background of this is Joseph, the son of Jacob. He is now in Potiphar's house. God has blessed him, given him authority, and his Potiphar's wife has falsely accused Joseph of sexual harassment. And so verse 19 picks up with these words. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held. And there he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. The Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Thus far, the word of the Lord. You may be seated. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held. And there he remained. And there he remained. That's the subject for today. And there he remained. The story of Joseph is one whose familiarity may cause us, Bobby, to be deaf to certain sounds within it. We believe that we've read it so often and know it so well that we gloss over some of the words within the story that scream for our further attention. Such is the case for us today, and it wasn't until we were examining this story for Vacation Bible School that some previously ignored words struck a certain tone. Those words are, and there he remained. In and of themselves, these words mean little to nothing. They don't sound like anything, but properly understood within the context of this unfolding story, they mean everything. That is to say, when you know the before and after of these words, there's a major revelation that God provides. Chapter 39 puts us within the midst of the Joseph story that begins in Genesis 37 with Joseph being the firstborn to Rachel, the wife whom Jacob preferred over Leah. And because of this, Joseph was the favorite of Jacob and despised by his brothers. This was intensified by two things. Joseph was a tattletale, and Joseph had dreams that spoke of his ascending above his brothers. Now, the dream wasn't something that Joseph made up. It was given to him by God. It was a God announcement for Joseph's life. It was a God purpose proclaimed that Joseph's life would be reordered, how Joseph saw himself and his place, not just among his brothers, but in the world that was reconstituted. There was a reconfiguration of dynamics of within his family and power. This resulted in the brothers' animosity reaching the point where they wanted to get rid of him, annoyed by his tattling, angered by his father's favoritism, and intimidated by his dreams. The brothers decide to get rid of Joseph once and for all. Initially, the decision was to kill him and tell Jacob that a wild animal had killed him, but cooler heads prevailed, and they sell Joseph to some Ishmaelite traders for 20 pieces of silver. This is where chapter 39 begins. Joseph has been sold by his brothers and seemingly forgotten by his father, who believes him to be dead. He is auctioned off to a man by the name of Potiphar, who is a captain of Pharaoh's guard. The Lord makes Joseph successful in every assignment, such that he is soon put in charge of everything that Potiphar owns. With his expanded authority and influence comes expanded exposure and testing. And so Mrs. Potiphar is attracted to young Joseph, and she tries to pull him. And if she were alive today, she might have said something like this: "Can I just say I'm your biggest fan? Your every word, I'm lost in a trance. Come on, babe. Come near to me. Give me one chance. I'll make it the best. Promise that you'll understand anything you have in mind, everything your heart desires. I want to give you all of me, yeah. I just need to make you see when it comes to good loving, baby, you can call on me." That's Layla Hathaway, if you need to know who that is. Joseph refuses each advancement. He holds on to his integrity with Potiphar, having trusted him with everything that Potiphar owned. He asserts his recognition that his authority is still within boundaries, because while Potiphar has trusted him with everything, he has not trusted him with his wife, and he declares his faithfulness to God. He could not commit such a great sin against God. And so Mrs. Potiphar goes from being seductress to false accuser. Because sadly, maintaining your integrity does not shield you from hardship. It shields you in hardship. It is the means by which your conscience is kept clear. And so hearing the accusations against Joseph, Potiphar is furious. I mean, the thought of being cuckolded by a young man with whom he has trusted his entire household, while painful to consider, is a much better thought than considering that his wife is a predatory cougar. And therefore, Potiphar takes Joseph and throws him into Pharaoh's prison, where Pharaoh's prisoners were kept. These were persons against whom Pharaoh had a particular issue, including people in his employ. This is another in a series of steps down for Joseph. He went from being the favorite son to being the sold slave. He goes from being the sold slave to being the favored administrator over Potiphar's house. And now he's gone from being the favored administrator to a felon doing time. The writer says, "And there he remained." The writer wants us to know that this wasn't Joseph in a holding cell for an overnight observance. This would be for a prolonged period of time. With a vision cast over him and the favor of God upon him, Joseph remained in Pharaoh's prison for well over 3 years. God has given Joseph a dream for ascendancy, but his life is marked by the rhythm: one step forward, 2 steps back. With palace purpose, Joseph is looking at prison bars, and there he remained. What happens when you have palace destiny, but you're living a prison reality? What's going on when you have divinely pronounced favor, but you seem to be in a permanent free fall, and there you remain? That had to have been the question of Nelson Mandela, who, while destined to lead the nation of South Africa out of the darkness of apartheid, remained in a cell half the size of this stage on Robben Island for 18 of his 27 years in jail, living in that small cell without a bed or plumbing and forced to hard labor in a rock quarry. He could only write and receive one letter once every 6 months. A collection of those letters that he wrote along with diary entries was published in a book entitled Conversations with Myself. And the book opens with a letter that he wrote to his wife, Winnie, in 1975. Listen to these words that he writes. He writes, "The cell is an ideal place to learn to know yourself, to search realistically and regularly the process of your own mind and feelings. In judging our progress as individuals, we tend to concentrate on external factors such as social position, influence and popularity, wealth and standard of education. These are, of course, important in measuring one's success in material matters. And it is perfectly understandable if many people exert themselves mainly to achieve these. But internal factors may even be more important and crucial in assessing one's development as a human being. Honesty, sincerity, simplicity, humility, pure generosity, absence of vanity, readiness to serve others, qualities which are within the reach of every soul, are the foundation of one's spiritual life. He continues, development in matters of this nature is inconceivable without serious introspection, without knowing yourself, your weaknesses and mistakes. At least if for nothing else, the cell gives you the opportunity to look daily into your entire conduct, to overcome the bad and develop whatever is good in you. Regular meditation, say about 15 minutes a day before you turn in, can be very fruitful in this regard. He says, you may find it difficult at first to pinpoint the negative features in your life, but the 10th attempt may yield rich rewards. And he closes by saying, never forget that a saint is a sinner who keeps on trying. With the presidency of the nation ahead of him, the time that Nelson Mandela remained in prison was the time that God developed the character necessary for the fulfillment of God's purposes for the future. It was that time of hammering out the bitterness and the rage and the anger that he legitimately felt towards his captors and oppressors. The time in the rock quarry was the classroom where he taught his fellow inmates how to overcome the bondage of bitterness and how to dream of a reconciled and renewed South Africa. It was there, as he remained in the cell, that a generosity of spirit and absence of vanity was forged. What's going on when you have to remain where you are? God is developing the character necessary for your future. In Genesis 37, Joseph wasn't known for doing anything other than tattling and dreaming. But it was in the household of Potiphar that Joseph began to develop the skills as an administrator and as a leader. It would be during his time in Pharaoh's prison that those skills would be further developed and honed. It would be in the prison that Joseph would go from one who just dreamt dreams to being one who was able to understand and interpret dreams. Psalm 105, verses 17 through 19 read this way: Then God sent someone to Egypt ahead of them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They bruised his feet with fetters and placed his neck in an iron collar until the time came to fulfill his dreams. The Lord tested Joseph's character. The Lord proved and approved Joseph's character. Child of God, the time when you have to remain is a time when God is developing your character. He is honing your skills and sensibilities and sensitivities. He is stripping away behaviors and perceptions and perspectives and feelings and attitudes that are contrary to where you are going and who you are meant to be. That's why with you remaining among the supervised, you're seeing what to expect from those you will have to supervise. You're learning the sensitivity needed for the supervised. With you remaining as a single, God is developing you to be the best single that you can be. He's giving you the chance to develop and live your best life now so that you'll have a great life to offer somebody should they come your way. While you're remaining as an understudy, as a second chair, God is showing you what life is like on the stage without you having to deal with the pressures of being on the stage. He's letting you mess up the lines when it doesn't cost the play anything. God is developing you. He is proving you. And the question is, can you handle prison pressure? Because if you can't handle pressure in Pharaoh's prison, you definitely can't make it in Pharaoh's palace. If you can't administer the chow line on the cell block, you won't know what to do with the lines coming to you during the 7 years of famine. If you can't interpret the dream of a baker and cupbearer, you're going to be clueless when it comes to interpreting Pharaoh's dreams. What's going on when you experience, and there he remained. Yes, your character is being developed, but then the people needed to assist your movement aren't in place yet. Look at this. Potiphar does not send Joseph to the county jail. He doesn't even send him to the federal penitentiary. He sends Joseph to Pharaoh's prison. This was the place reserved for people who've committed infractions against Pharaoh. They are people who within the employ of Pharaoh have upset Pharaoh, and Pharaoh has put them in timeout. It's a white-collar crime place. And it is there that Joseph comes into contact with Pharaoh's baker and cupbearer. These are two individuals who have proximity and access to Pharaoh. They've offended Pharaoh. He's put them in timeout. The warden then assigns them to Joseph, who looks after them. God grants Joseph favor with them by Joseph taking care of them, and later by Joseph interpreting their dreams. And part of the interpretation of their dreams is that within 3 days, Pharaoh was going to bring them out of prison. One was going to be impaled and the other would be employed. And sure enough, 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, both of them are released from prison. The chief baker is impaled as his dream was foretold. That is to say, he was killed. And the cupbearer was returned to the service of Pharaoh. Friends, nobody gets where God desires by themselves. God uses other people to help you get to where God wants you to go. And sometimes what that means is we have to remain where we are because the people necessary to move certain things aren't in the right place yet. You see, sometimes you can be at the airport on time. The plane can be there. The plane is gassed up. The bags are loaded. You got your boarding card punched. The cabin is clean. The refreshments are stocked. But you can't move because the crew has not arrived. Those that are necessary for the actual operation of the plane have yet to get there. And sometimes that can be the whole crew has not arrived, and sometimes you can be waiting for just one flight attendant who is yet to arrive. Either way, friends, you remain where you are until the crew gets there. And as one who has to travel a lot, I'm learning to stop getting mad and to start praying for them to come. I pray that the flight that they're coming in on will have no delays and will land at the same terminal with not too many gates between them and where I am. I pray that they will be refreshed. I pray that they won't be tired. I pray that they won't be irritable. I pray that they won't have an attitude, because I need them to be their best selves when I'm on the plane. And what I'm trying to let you know is, when you find yourself in that situation where you are remaining where you have to be, and it could be that certain people are not in place yet, you need to pray to God for the correct placement of everybody necessary for the fulfillment of God's purpose for your future. You got to pray for the openness of their hearts and their minds. You got to pray for the sensitivity of their spirits. You got to pray for the supportiveness and the amenability to what God is doing. You got to pray that God will override and overrule any obstruction to which they might automatically be prone. You got to pray for the people that God is going to use to move you. What's going on when you experience, and there he remains, sometimes the right people aren't in place yet, and sometimes, all the time, your character is being developed. But there's something else. Why? Sometimes it's the place where you're going doesn't need you and isn't prepared for you yet. This one is going to be hard for somebody to take. You may have palace potential, but there may not be palace necessity yet. That is to say, you can't get to the palace until you're needed in the palace. Joseph remained where he was as long as he did because he was needed where he was and not where he was going. It would be at least 3 years before Pharaoh would have a dream that Pharaoh can't understand. And while that was the case, the warden in the prison needed administrative help. The prison needed project management, organizational development, human resources, food and laundry services help. The baker and cupbearer would have dreams that they couldn't understand. And even after the baker and cupbearer were returned to Pharaoh's employ, it would be 2 more years before Pharaoh would have a dream that he can't understand. Meanwhile, Joseph was present to the needs where he was, while he wasn't needed where he was going. Yes, sometimes you have to remain where you are because the need for where you're going has yet to be established. And while this is so, there is so much need where you are. And the question is, can you celebrate being needed where you are while you're waiting on going where you want to go? Can you be present to the present need while you're waiting on the future opening? Can you add value as an intern or as a volunteer while you're waiting to be hired? Can you be open to what is open to you while you're waiting on God to open what is closed to you? Can you maximize the time that you have where you are while you're waiting on the moment where you hope to be? Because, friends, the truth is you won't move from where you are until God sets the atmosphere for where you're going. And I know this is unnerving for some people because you want to go where you're going. I mean, it's unnerving for me. I want to go where I'm going. But can I just make you mad one more time? You won't get there until God has set the atmosphere for it. And I know it's upsetting. I know it's upsetting. It's like when your flight lands at the airport, but the gate isn't ready. In your mind, you've traveled 5 hours from California. You got connections. You got places to go. You got people to see. You got things to do, but the gate isn't ready. And it doesn't matter how much you protest, how angry you get, how many tweets or posts you make, you will remain on the plane until the gate is ready. Can I help somebody out? I know you think you've landed. I know you think that you've arrived. I know that you think that you're ready. You got connections to make. You got places to go. You got people to see. You got things to do. But God is sending you this post. It won't happen until the gate is ready. I know it's hard. I can't stand it myself. And I'm having to hear it over and over, even as I'm preaching. But I've learned, since you got to stay on the plane until the gate gets ready, I might as well take advantage of that opportunity. The movie that wasn't finished when we landed, I just keep on watching it. The sermon that wasn't finished when we landed, I just keep on writing. The emails I hadn't gotten to, I just open up and read. The calls that I might need to make, I go ahead and make them. The Words with Friends play that I need to win the game, I just go ahead and play the game. Since you can't leave the plane, friends, what I would advise you to do is make the time on the plane work for you. Do what you can until you can do what you want to do. Be who you need to be until you can be who you want to be. One of our members now oversees a major work in the State Department, traveling all over the world, providing programming for young people all over the world. But can I tell you how she started? She started volunteering for the State Department, not even being paid. But she said, if I can volunteer, maybe God will open a door for me. She was what they needed her to be. And God used that to make her what she never saw herself becoming. She did what she could on the plane, and God has taken her places she never dreamed when the gate was ready for her. Because when you make yourself present to what you can do where you are, God is able to take you places that you never imagined. I wonder, am I talking to somebody in here? Is there anybody in here, anybody at Beatties Ford Road, anybody at South Charlotte who can testify by being just faithful to where you were, faithful to what you knew? God has taken you places. God has made you. God has done for you more than you imagine. But here's the last thing. When you have to remain where you are, know that the favor of God remains with you. Look at it. Verse 20 reads, so he took Joseph, threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. Verse 21 reads, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. As Joseph remained where he was, God remained with Joseph. And as God remained with Joseph, the favor of God remained with Joseph. God showed Joseph God's faithful love. And where Joseph remained, God's favor upon Joseph made Joseph a favorite with the warden. Where Joseph remained, God opened the heart of the warden and made him look favorably upon Joseph. God empowered Joseph to be effective and successful in everything that he did where he remained. Now there's this line that's running through Joseph's story. Without Joseph doing anything, the favor of God just keeps on making Joseph the favorite of somebody. Without Joseph having done anything, he was Jacob's favorite. My God, he was Potiphar's favorite. He becomes the warden's favorite because favor does that for you. Favor opens up the hearts and minds of people and makes you their favorite and causes them to treat you favorably. Joseph is placed in charge of all the prisoners where he remained. Joseph enjoys success where he remains. Joseph grows goes, where he remains. And God causes everything that Joseph does to succeed where Joseph remains. Joseph's success in prison prepares him for the test in the palace. God remained with Joseph as Joseph remained where he was. I'm just trying to help somebody understand that when you find yourself in a there you remain situation, you're not there by yourself. The Lord remains with you, and all that the Lord is remains with you. God's presence and power accompany God's purpose, and wherever you are in your process, God's favor is right there, and God's favor is able to make you a favorite and make people look favorably upon you in a place where you'd rather not be. God's favor is able to make you a favorite in the place where you should be the least favored. God's favor is able to make you a favorite before you've done anything favorable. Look at the text again. The text says, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. Now you got to follow me. There's nothing mentioned about what Joseph did. It's what the Lord did where Joseph was. The Lord made Joseph a favorite with the warden, and before long the warden put Joseph in charge. Whose ticket did I just punch? The only way for you to explain who you are and where you are is the fact that the Lord made and somebody put. The favor of the Lord made somebody put you on a list. The favor of the Lord made somebody put you in line. The favor of the Lord made somebody put you in position. The favor of the Lord made somebody put you in place. The favor of the Lord made somebody put you in mind. Tell your neighbor, I wish I could take credit for it, but it was nothing but the favor of the Lord. And the favor of the Lord put me where I am. By natural accounts, I should not be where I am right now, but the favor of the Lord put me where I am. I got good news for somebody. You're in a there I remain state, but while you're remaining where you are, God is remaining with you, and God's favor is with you, and God's favor is doing things for you right where you are. Can I go back to the plane? When you're on the plane waiting on the tarmac and you can't get to the gate, favor is able to make things happen for you while you're still on the plane, because when you have status, flight attendants bring you pretzels and some soda. When you have status, there's a dedicated line that you can call and receive information about where things are and steps you can take while you're still on the plane, while you have status. And my God, and your connecting flight has left you, they automatically book you on the next flight. That's what the favor of God does for you, child. While you're remaining on the runway and can't get to the gate, God is able to bring certain things to you and work certain things out for you. Oh my God. So I want you to know that God's favor will keep you until God's future moves you. Oh, slap high with your neighbor and say his favor will keep you until his future moves you. God's favor kept Joseph until God's future moved Joseph. Kept Joseph in prison until God's future moved Joseph to the palace. And again, Psalm 105 says, until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. Then Pharaoh sent for him and set him free. When God gets ready to move for you, you ain't got to do anything. Folk will start sending for you. God's favor will keep you right where you are until God's future moves you to where you're going. And God will have people sending for you. They'll be writing you. They'll be inviting you. They'll be emailing you. But God's favor will bless you right where you are until God's future moves you to where you're going. His favor will fulfill you where you are until his future moves you to where you're going. His favor will satisfy you where you are until his future moves you to where you're going. His favor will make you successful where you are until his future moves you to where you're going. Come here, Jesus, and talked to me for a little while. I came with the favor of the Father, and the Father was with me wherever I was. And every now and then, the Father would announce his favor on my life. When I was being baptized, he said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." When I was on the Mount of Transfiguration, he said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." I had the favor of my Father until his future moved me. I had favor when I was in the wilderness for 40 days doing battle with the devil. I had favor when it got stormy on the Sea of Galilee. I had favor in the Garden of Gethsemane when I didn't want the cup. I had favor when they lied on me. I had favor when they beat me. I had favor when they nailed me. I had favor when they lifted me. I had favor when they crucified me. I had favor when I gave up the ghost. I had favor when they put me in the grave. I had favor when I went into hell. And when God got ready, early Sunday morning, he moved me and raised me from the dead. And now all power is in my hand. And I've got a name that's above every name. That is the name of Jesus. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that he's Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Slap by with your neighbor and say, "Neighbor, I'm where I am with the favor of God. I may not be where I ultimately go, but where I am, I've got favor. I'm doing what I'm doing with the favor of God. I'm being who I am with the favor of God. And he's with me where I am. He's blessing me where I am. He's favoring me where I am. He's preparing me where I am. He's proving me where I am. He's tuning me where I am. He's shaping me where I am. He's maturing me where I am. He's arranging me where I am. He's rearranging me where I am. He's purging me where I am. He's providing me with what I need right now and what I'll need on tomorrow. So tell your neighbor, if that's true, if he's doing all that with you where you are, can you praise him where you are? Can you honor him where you are? Can you worship him where you are? Can you shout glory where you are? Can you wave